So I'm a little bit late to the whole Q series announcement, but there's a lot to talk about here that I thought I needed to break it down because it is definitely something that will make a huge wave in the next season. So with that, let's talk about it. Alright, so the DGPT has announced that they'll be doing away with the whole Silver Series, Silver events. It is now the Q Series, which does kind of feel like QAnon, which is a bit weird to have that naming so close, but whatever. Naming aside, the whole initiative is to promote these lower level players to actually get a tour card to be on tour for the following season. And the way that they did this is a little bit, I would say, not great. And the reason that I say that is because it feels very limited. I think you can do a lot of work, be one of the best players on the entire tour on this like Q Series tour, and you will still not make it as a touring card member for the following season. So with that, I don't necessarily love that factor, but let's go into specifics and figure out why that is. All right, so first off, there's only been a few events that have been announced. They have said that there may be more coming, but it is not a for sure thing, which I feel like, how has this not been finalized? They've been talking about this since the end of last season. So the fact that this is not actually the full tour is a bit upsetting. And I think that might be the fault of like a TD, might be the fault of the tour. I don't know who is to blame, but we really should have had this stuff finalized, especially if you are trying to make it on tour. You need to know what the event schedule is in order to make it to all these events. But with that aside, let's go into what is actually being named. And in hilarious fashion, the first course is TBA. So good stuff there. 303 Open, the Capital of Texas Open, Cascade Challenge, we remember that one. Infinite Disc Beehive Classic and Zoo Open, we remember that one. We have the Discraft CCR Open by Great Lakes Disc. I don't know if that's like part of D-Glow, I assume no. Diameter Open, Mary Sunshine House Classic, and then the series finale on November 22nd. That is also very late, so I'm surprised to see that. And again, it is TBA. So we do not know where that is going to be, which is, again, very interesting. And so it was stated that in order to qualify for the series finale, which will primarily be the way that you get your touring card, you have to basically be a top 50 MPO player or top 25 FPO player based upon the Q Series standings, which is different than the Pro Tour standings. And then on the Pro Tour standings, if you are 91st to 150th on MPO and 46th to 80th on FPO, you will qualify for the series finale. And to make it even just a little bit more obscure, so the top 2 FPO and the top 3 MPO in Tour Series points for the Q Series get a tour card. If you place top 2 in FPO or top 3 in MPO in the series finale, you will get a tour card. If you place 3rd to 5th on FPO and 4th to 8th on MPO, at the series finale, you'll get a silver card. And if you win any DGPT-Q Series event, you'll get a silver card as well. And if you're wondering what a silver card actually does, it will grant you, I believe, because this wording is just very difficult to understand, one future DGPT event of your choosing. The whole thing just feels very kind of convoluted, which is not to say that it is going to be a bad schedule by any means, but it is to say, I don't love the announcement. I don't love that so much stuff is TBA. I don't love that there's even more events that have not been announced. Like if you are a touring player, you need to know like, hey, there's this event in Texas in like the middle of July. I can't play there, so I'm not even going to try to play that event. These events are, I think, like full price. Like at least the Can Win Open is like $215, which I don't know if that's like the actual full price of MPO, but that is certainly a lot of money, especially for people that are like not even touring, but they're trying to become a tour player. That is really not enough to make it as like a Q Series touring player, if that's even like a true profession, because there's literally no money in it. Because if you're not like top 30 MPO and top like 10 FPO, you're not going to make enough to sustain yourself on tour. So it really begs the question, who is this actually for? Who can just drop whatever they're doing, play all of these events in the entire year, and not only that, but be good enough to make it to the series finale and then there be lucky enough to have a good finish and get a tour card for the next year? There are so many different factors in play that make me think, why is this just like calculus? Why is it something you have to like figure out? Why is it not more straightforward? I really don't know. I don't love it. I don't really think this is the trend that I was hoping for. I thought it was going to be basically the same situation as last year, just basically a few less events and a lot less points for the DGPT standings. I thought it was going to be much more structured in that way, but now you really have no incentive to do this, even if you're like top 90 for MPO and like top 45 for FPO. So that really makes it hard to even want to watch as a big fan of disc golf. I don't really foresee myself watching these events besides like maybe the first couple to kind of get a feel of what they are. I mean, I'm definitely gonna watch Kansas City Wide Open because that's like my hometown. But other than that, I really have a hard time trying to make sense in my head of why they did it this way. I think there's so much more value in allowing more people to become a touring card member. And as far as I know, you can still play MPO events, assuming that it is not filled up by the time you register. So I think even if you don't have a tour card, you can still play. You just have to get really lucky, be the first one to sign up, and it's just a little bit difficult. But as far as I know, you can still do that. But really, I thought I was gonna make a whole video about why the Q series was bad based upon the few locations. But that actually is not the worst case here. The worst thing is that it is so convoluted, so pointless, I would have to say, because it's just for so few people. Like even me that is a full-time business owner in the disc golf scene that plans to go to a lot of events, even if I was just a phenomenal pro, I would still struggle to make it to all these events and be like a good touring player. So if you're truly trying to make it on this Q Series tour, you are definitely in a minority that I don't think that many people actually exist in. And the timing definitely feels a little bit weird because you have 3 events back to back to back in May. You have 1 event in the middle of June, 1 event in the middle of July, and then it is very much backlogged to the end of the season as well, with your last event being the series finale in November 22nd to 24th. That is just so insane, right near Thanksgiving, which might have been because the tour had to move some touring events around. Not really sure about that, but I definitely have to say I kind of expected this whole Q Series event to be much better ran. I thought this was going to be like they had everything nailed down. I thought there was going to be no questions, and that does not seem to be the reality that we live in. But there's just a couple more points that I wanted to bring up that I kind of glossed over earlier. And that is, if you win one of these series events, you only get a silver card, which will give you access to 1 DGPT event next year. So if you place like top 3 at one event, top 2 at another event, and then you win 1, and let's say the rest of the tour you have to be doing other stuff because you can't afford to be like this Q Series player, you might only get the potential to play 1 event in the following year on the DGPT. Now you could argue, well, hey, if you didn't play good at the finale, that's on you. But I do think if you're performing so good at these events, then you should get rewarded a whole lot more than the silver card, which again, I think only grants you 1 DGPT event. And while I do definitely love that we still have a full tour season with a bunch of events lined up, I love that. It definitely seems to me like this whole Q series was something that was kind of just set aside, where the Pro Tour was just kind of like not really dealing with it until the last minute. And then when stuff had to get finalized, they came up with this kind of obscure system that they thought would be fair, but still would not allow that many people to have tour cards. But overall, I don't love it. And I definitely want some clarification if I get this wrong. But I think if I'm reading this correct, the maximum amount of tour cards given to MPO is 6 total tour cards. So that is 3 people that finish in the top Q Series point standings and the top 3 finishers at the Q Series finale. So assuming those are different, but they're probably going to be like the same people, that is a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 6 tour cards given out for MPO. And I would say that's just not good. I think if you are trying to make it on tour, you should definitely be given a better presence on tour than that. And I would really like to see these rules get changed and altered, because that doesn't really leave a whole lot of room for anyone to try to truly make it on tour if they're not already. If anything, I would say this whole tour card system really does make it seem like if you're on tour, they want you to stay on tour and they do not want you to give that up because they value you a whole lot, but they don't value new players nearly as much. That might be just kind of like a hater perspective, but that's just kind of the way that I see it. I would really like to see these things get altered, but for now, that is what it is. I definitely think the course variety is cool. I like it. I would love to see these events get probably better coverage than they're going to get. I'd like to see more players go to these events, but presumably it is going to be just a couple of people that you know, but primarily people that you don't know, which is good in some sense because it's good to see new players, but it's also a little bit sad to see that like the days of Kristen and Paul and Simon, and those days are just totally gone. There's no reason for any touring card player to do these events. It just doesn't make sense. So it is going to be probably a whole lot less interesting unless we have some like insanely cool bombers. But with that, we'll just have to see It's just kind of a matter of time to see how it does end up. But overall, I am just not a fan. I wish it was done differently. And I really hope it just works out in the best possible way. But looking at it, at least from my perspective, it does not seem to really do a great job of giving players the opportunity to be a touring card member. But if you guys have very strong opinions against that, I'd love to know. But with that said, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. I have a lot of fun stuff coming up, and I definitely think you'll enjoy it. So with that, Wild Runs, signing out. Peace.